need all of you to come to the table. And you mentioned that we leave things on the table. How do we help then people to rely and really open up all of who they are to this relationship with God and with other people?
Well, you definitely have to feel safe. I'm not saying you have to be attached to everybody. That would not be healthy. But to really understand your attachment style, most of us have had trauma, and trauma is a big buzzword these days. But if you understand, if you've undergone any kind of everyday trauma or neglect, it is harder to heal and move toward other people, because those are like everyday disappointments and ways you were overlooked that are just hard to resolve. People who are really highly trained experts would tell you it's easier to treat a severe PTSD than it is somebody who's just been chronically neglected. So we have to understand attachment style, and then start looking at where we've been trying to comfort ourselves in the choices that we've been making to avoid dealing with some of that stuff. I say that with a laugh, but it's no laughing matter. It's hard work. But to do that, and to do that in community, is where we're going to find healing. Because there's a saying, whatever's been wounded in community can only be healed in community. If you've been wounded in church, that's the only place you're going to be healed, is not in a building, but in a community of believing Jesus, loving people.
I wonder, as you're saying that, I think of the people that have been deconstructing, but they all find each other. It's almost as if they're creating their own pseudo church to process the trauma that they've experienced together. And you wrote in the book, as you were talking about attachment styles, the avoidant insecure attachment, anxious insecure attachment, disorganized insecure attachment. And you said, hey, if any of these happen in community, that's the only place they can be healed. How do we help people create this safe environment, this safe community, so that people can experience this type of healing?
Well, I just suggest figuring out ways to cultivate authenticity for yourself. For me to become present and aware of what I was really going through as far as my emotions and my body, and just talk to God about, I never realized how anxious I am. COVID will do that to you or whatever. And really working through that, to just even say, I am some of those things, is a big step for a lot of us. We just don't think that has anything to do with our life with God, and asking him to show you is a big first step. And then bringing that out in the open with some trusted others. Beyond that, I think it's just modeling. And I do really appreciate Jim's work when he talks about, the prevalence of narcissism in our culture is outrageous, but in the church, it's equally ridiculous. If you're going to church and you don't want to be known, then don't bother going to church, just watch on TV. But you're not going to experience the return of joy. You can't have joy by yourself. It's a relational brain skill. So that sounds really harsh now that I'm listening to myself say it, but people think that, gathering together is optional. And I don't care if your group is 3 people or it's 300 people, you have to put yourself in community. God calls us to community. And he knows that's where we rub the rough edges off one another. And he also knows that's where our heart finds joy. So you got to really make that a priority.